I'm Beck and welcome to a video where I tell you basically how I got my to be read pile down from 205 unread books to only 21. And I also want to preface this video with the fact that having a lot of books that are unread is not inherently bad, but when I had over 200 books that were unread for me, I was like, I am very stressed. So I wanted a number that was 30 or under, and that's what I set up for myself as a goal, which took me a couple of years to achieve. And now that I've got 21 books, I'm here to report what helped me and what questions that I got to ask myself and how to form better habits about my reading. So let's get into my video. One of the things I asked myself when I was looking at this multitude of books I owned was, has my reading taste changed? Because when I initially got all of these books, I was writing a thesis for my literature degree. And because I was writing a thesis and in the throes of all this academic reading, I couldn't read for my own pleasure and I didn't have time to actually read fiction. So instead of letting myself just read academic texts, I would get into the hype of BookTube and Bookstagram and order a whole bunch of books online, and then they would just pile up and I wouldn't be able to read them. So because my reading was stagnant, my taste was changing and I was just buying books willy-nilly. It meant that I didn't have time to kind of sit down, take stock and go, actually, I don't really love young adult as much as I used to anymore, or I don't want to read a fantasy romance. So I just checked in with myself really, and I made myself more self-aware of what I was buying. And sometimes I looked at books too, and I'm like, do I actually think I would enjoy this? Would I probably DNF it? Because I didn't know at that point a lot of the blurbs of the books either. I just kind of knew a quick general vibe about them based on what people were saying online. So because I looked at all of the pile of books I had and reevaluated my reading taste and whether I might put that book down and not finish it in general, that helped cull a lot of the books that I already owned before I even set about making to be read lists for myself. So even before I'd left that gate, I was like, actually, I don't need to take all of these things with me. So that helped a little bit, especially culling things around the edges. And I also used Goodreads to do this too, because it gave me a comprehensive list and I could see all of the things that I'd added, what their general ratings were. So I kind of got an understanding of what people enjoyed about them, what people rated them, and whether they were worth my time. Another question to ask yourself is, do you mood read? Are you a seasonal reader? And it took me a long time to own up to the fact that I am a seasonal reader. I was like, no, I just read fantasy every month of the year. And while that's true, I actually read a lot of romance as well. And it's taken me a while to realize that I do like contemporary. I read science fiction and fantasy mostly, but contemporary is something that I really love as well. And I read those when it's more summer, spring months so that you've got a little bit of sunshine. And so that kind of invigorates that thought of, oh, I want to read something light and sunshiny and fluffy and romantic. And so because if you read seasonally and you're looking at this massive pile of books, you see a whole bunch of contemporary books and you're like, well, I'm never going to read those, so goodbye. Well, hang on a second, you might. And I made sure to go, I'm going to sort all my stuff into different genres and then see what moods I'm in and what months those moods correspond to. So I might put a whole bunch aside for Christmas or for winter or for autumn and Halloween even. And that helped me kind of segregate books and put them aside so that I wouldn't initially just get rid of them because I'm determined to cull everything. I don't want to get rid of a book and then regret it, because I've done that before. I've gotten rid of a book and gone, actually, I really would like to read that, but it's just, I got rid of it 6 months ago. Something that I also really benefit from is visuals. So I have a TBR cart, so a to be read cart. I separate the books that I haven't read yet and I put them all on this cart. So when you've got a massive amount of books, I used to have a to be read shelf, but now I've reduced it to just a cart, and it's much more versatile because not only can I move it wherever I want it to go, I actually have a visual point of reference for, oh, I'm making a to be read list for this particular month or for this particular reading challenge or for this particular season. And so you have all of your unread books in one location and you can really cherry pick from them. So having them separate from my bookshelves means that I know what I want to choose, and I also don't forget what I haven't read yet because it's not combined with all my read books. So visually separating my to be read list has helped massively, and I would encourage it. Also, a TBR card is really cute and you can decorate it however you want. So if you can decorate something and make yourself feel better about it, 100% definitely do it. And I also want to reiterate again that having a to be read pile is not a bad thing. And I'm trying to divorce the thought of, I have unread books and that is bad. It's not bad. It just means you've got a lot of choice, but I don't like having a massive amount of choice because that overwhelms me. So if I can visualize what choices I've got left, that really helps. The second last point that I've got is be honest with yourself. And this is one of the things that I have struggled with immensely. And this links into DNFing books, which is did not finish. So when you put something down and you decide definitively not to continue it anymore, I have really struggled with this, especially with books in my genre. And I thought, I've committed all this time to it already. Why should I put it down now? I'm at 80%, I should keep going. But if I've kept going, it means that I've ended up hate reading books. I've disappointed myself and then I've put myself in a reading slump. And I've not wanted to be reading, or I've not motivated myself to read anymore because this book has just tanked all my interest. And so sometimes it's good to have a bit of space from reading and realize that you actually like it as a hobby. But also, if you're reading something that is kind of meh for you, it is okay to put it down. And if that's hard for you to do, put it down for a while and see if you want to revisit it in a few weeks. And then if you don't, it's probably easier to go, yeah, I'll definitely put that down for good. But a slow burn DNF is sometimes good. And I did that a lot when I was leading up into trying to get my unread books down to under 30. So it really helped me. And I did a DNF video last year. I'm doing another one this year. It's just nice to keep track of books that you have put down, because that means that you can recognize what patterns those books follow. And even though other people love them, you can recognize they're not for you. And so you don't fall into those traps anymore of thinking you might like it, but then realizing that it's not for you at all. And it's also just nice to know your reading taste. Putting time into a book that you don't want to read is just such a waste. And that really leads into my last point. And that is to make time for reading. So why waste time on a book that you're not enjoying when you've got so little time during the day? I tend to also get sunk into social media, and I'm not alone in that. I'm definitely not alone. So when I'm doing those things and getting sucked in, that takes about 10-15 minutes of my day. And you know, in little chunks, that's not so much, but if you add them all together, it can be up to 30 minutes to an hour, and that's minimum. So I'm thinking if I put that time to reading instead, which is one of my general goals for this year, to kind of dedicate more of my time to actually reading, it's going to help me finish more books. And I've started to shift out of that mode of thinking. Instead of just sinking into social media, I'm picking up a book instead. Sometimes it is hard, and sometimes you just need that brain switch off time. So it's recognizing what is laziness and what is genuine switch off time because you're just tired and want to disassociate for a while. So it does take energy to read, and reading is a hobby. But if you're doing something lazy instead and just not bothering to read, that was the hard part for me sometimes when picking up books. I was looking at all of these overwhelming stacks of books and going, I don't have time for these. I'm just going to scroll social media instead. But if you chip away at something that big and you break it down into such smaller chunks, it's actually easier to get through things than you'd think. And I've surprisingly read 15 books this year, and it's only the beginning. So if I can get through books that quickly, and if I've got so much to do every day as well, it just means I can fit books into my day. And I just didn't have the time, or I didn't think I had the time to do that before. But reading a book for 10 minutes here and there, it would actually surprise you of the progress you're making. And it's just so rewarding to finish more books than you thought you would in a month because you just dedicated that extra time. So those are really my tips. Honestly, if you can be ruthless, but I tended to be too ruthless at the beginning because I was just determined to get my list down. So when you're being ruthless, probably just put them in a box nearby before you actually physically get rid of them. Otherwise, you'll regret one or two things that you got rid of. Hopefully you can DNF books with a little bit more ease after you put these rules into place for yourself, but ultimately it's just self-awareness and recognizing what you're enjoying and what you're not enjoying. So good luck. I applaud you because now that I've got a small TBR, I'm like, will I even have enough to read? But when I had a big TBR, I was like, I've got too much to read. So honestly, it's just really hard to please yourself no matter what you do, but at least this way you have some kind of self-awareness and control over what you want on your TBR pile, which is what we ultimately want. We want to be reading books that we love. So let me know down below how many books you've got on your to be read pile. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll come and chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.